Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Combat Talk. This week we have Cindy Hlebik. She's an MMA amateur fighter. She competes in jiu-jitsu. She competes all the time in different combat sports, and you guys might know her on social media, might see her plugging your favorite fighters, plugging her training, and getting after what she does. So, Miss Cindy Hlebik, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be
Of
here.
course. We gotta have our future rising star on the show. So, without further ado, the one thing that I want to get into, I know a lot of people ask you like how you got into combat sports and you were doing other things before.
Yeah.
So what was your journey, how you found combat sports?
So mine was a little bit different. Like I wasn't always into combat sports. I have been an athlete pretty much my whole life. I've been doing sports since I was 4. Played soccer for about 12 years. I'd actually intended to go and try to become a professional soccer player, like through college and then going into a league after that. But just because of finances, my parents are middle class, so we weren't really able to afford to send me to a college. And there was no colleges that I had tried out for that were willing to give me a full ride scholarship. They did want me on the team, but they were like, we only have so many to go around. You can try out and we'll take you. But that was what it was going to be. So I ended up, I didn't, other than sports, there's really no reason for me to go to college. I didn't really have like an aspiring, like, I want to go be a doctor. And my parents, they were like, well, we would rather you know what you want to do and, go to college for a reason rather than getting into debt. So instead of doing that, I had started online college. And in between all that, before I graduated, I left my soccer team and I ended up joining the wrestling team because I just kind of got tired of the team sports. And I was like, you know what? I've been watching UFC since I was young and I have, wanted to do wrestling. They came to the middle school. So let's just try it and see what happens. My dad thought I was crazy because he was like, you've been doing soccer for 12 years. Why do you want to wrestle? And I was like, because it looks fun. Let's screw it. And then my stepdad, after I got interested in combat sports, he was like, hey, do you want to learn how to kickbox just for self-defense? I said yes. And then that led into jujitsu, and that led into watching UFC every night. And then after that, I just kind of became obsessed with it. And they're like, hey, do you want to like do this full time? And I was like, yes, I do. And I'm just summing it all up because it's a lot. But after that, I worked my full-time summer job for a year, saved up 10 grand, and then I moved out at 18 to Dallas. And on a family favor, Safe let me into the gym at Fortis, and I've been training there ever since. And I've been training underneath Charles Bird, Macy Chasson, Sam Hughes, Safe, Uriah, Ocho, Peterson. Yeah, like I've been beyond blessed to be training underneath these legends, and they've just basically been like raising me up from 18 to now, and like, all right, time to go. And then yeah, that's pretty much it.
I felt like I could relate to that a lot because I started out young because I am 18, but I started out really young in middle school. And I think the one thing like a lot of people don't realize, like as a girl, there's not that many girls to train with. So like your experience to like train with girls is everything you need, especially like competing in jiu-jitsu, competing as amateur MMA fighter as you are. The one thing that I want to know and I'm curious to, and I think a lot of people are curious to, is you do train with professional fighters. And what do you think are the main differences that you see as a fighter versus someone that's just training to like get in shape or
Mhm.
just get ready for like a jiu-jitsu tournament instead of a fight?
I would definitely say it's the level of professionalism and the mindset. The mindsets are very different. And, a lot of people preach like, oh, it's your mindset, it's your mindset. And it kind of seems like hogwash. But until you're in it and you're surrounded by people who have champion mindsets of every single day, we are working to get better and we are trying to achieve a goal and we have a goal in mind. Whereas other people who are just training just to train and they're just wanting to, get fit or maybe do like an amateur like point sparring match and then that's it and they don't want to go any further with it, their mindset to how they train is so much different. Whereas like someone who is in the UFC and they're like, I have money on the line, I have my reputation on the line, like there's a lot of pressure on this. They take it 10 times more seriously. Like in practice, no one's talking, everyone is listening to coach. It's yes sir, no sir. We're giving 110% effort. we're not late to practice. Everyone's at least 5 to 10 minutes early, already warmed up, ready to go. We're on the mats and we're training. And then as soon as we're done, we're packing up our stuff, we're going home and we're coming back the next day. Like it's just a different mindset and elite training level that I really don't think that you can get anywhere else other than working with people who are above you. And it sounds really cliche to say, but if you're the best in the room, you're in the wrong room. Like you need to be with people who are above you to really push you and like make you grind. So I would say that's the main difference. I mean, now that I'm training people, like, I've seen that difference in level and it's perfectly fine. Like I don't judge people on what they want to do because if you don't want to fight, don't fight. You have to be either all in or you're not, because that's what it takes to be in MMA. You're getting in a cage to fight someone. You got to be all there or not. So that's what I would say is the main difference is that mindset.
I love that for you because like watching you and doing the research before the interview, you do a lot, and I don't think a lot of people give you a credit for it.
Thank you.
And the one thing that I do have to say is like when I first started, and especially like learning a lot more to get to where I am today, a lot of people you see come in are like just messing around and stuff. And you have to differentiate yourself and be like, okay, this is what I'm here for, and not this other person. But for you, you talk about how you just started training other people. For you, for that experience, what was that like at first, being able to train other people? Were you like awkward to it? Did you like it? What is it like for you personally?
So to train people, it was a little nerve-wracking at first, and there was definitely that sense of like, do I know what I'm doing? And again, very grateful to have had the mentors that I've had. I've been able to watch what they're doing and how they teach people. And I even got to shadow some of my coaches before I went and started doing it, just to kind of get a feel for like, how do you run a class, like time management skills and all of those things. But like once you understand the fundamentals of what you do, it's honestly, it's even better to teach people because then you can take something that you learned in class that day and go, okay, if I can teach it to someone, then I know that I understand this concept and why. So, like, if I'm teaching someone a jab, I'm now teaching not only just throwing the punch, but I'm like, okay, now I have to think about how to teach them to throw it correctly. So that's going to be like making sure your arm is tucked in all the way to your body, making sure I'm rotating those shoulders all the way over. And so teaching someone is also teaching yourself. And so not only are you in a service position, but you're also doing good for yourself and being able to understand the full concept of what you're doing. And it just heightens your fight IQ 10 times. So once you get to a point that like you understand your fundamentals and you're good at something, then start maybe ask one of your friends like, hey, would you mind doing like a free private session with me, and just doing a trial class with them and seeing if you understand what you're doing enough to teach someone else who doesn't know anything, and go from there. But yeah, it's definitely nerve-wracking, but as you do it, you'll get more confident in it.
Now, with you saying that, the one thing that makes me curious is with you fighting and wanting to achieve so much in the sport, how do you think coaching helped you as someone when you're in training camp? Because when you're in training camp, you have to be so dialed in and focused. How do you think that aspect of it helped you during your fight camp? Did it make you see things that you didn't see before? Or maybe things that you were like, oh, why didn't I know that he was just saying that? Or my coach was saying that the whole time, like, oh my God.
So I actually just recently started coaching. So my first fight that I just had in August, I hadn't started teaching yet. But for my fight camp, if you want to go into it, like the preparation for that was like way different than anything else I've done. But I just want to know if that's something that you're
Yeah,
interested
we can definitely go into that.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for my fight camp, it was my first one where I was, like this was official, like this is going to be full contact. This is your fight. I had done like plenty of point competitions before that, like some smokers. And one of them was really cool. I got to do like almost like in the simulation of an amateur fight, but it was like way dialed back as far as like how much power we could throw and all that stuff. So this one, like I was like, okay, this is it. But I had been training for 3 years prior to this year for this, with like every single time that I came into practice from the time I started to my fight, I came in with the mindset of this is what I want to do. I need to make sure that whatever I'm doing is benefiting towards that point. So once we had the date, I was like, all right, cool. We're officially locked in. And I just dialed it up. I would say a little bit more than I had already been doing because it just been consistent the whole time. So I really didn't need to change too much, but I did add in some more classes. So like I was doing twice a week with my private trainer. I was doing VO2 max sprints twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. I was doing some lifting. I was getting help with my nutrition to make sure that we were cutting down in the right times. And then we really dialed up our sparring and our hard sparring because we really wanted to put me in that situation of, okay, you're cutting weight, you feel like crap. Now you have to go 3 3-minute rounds. Sometimes we would do 5 just to make sure I could last that long. But it really does get 10 times more intense. But if you're already training throughout the year at a high level, you really don't need to adjust too much. And I would say the only other thing that I did that really did help was, again, it goes back to the mindset, but visualizing every single detail from the time of like, what am I going to do leading up to the fight? How am I going to behave during my weigh-ins, my face-off, walking out, and then being in the cage? Every single tiny aspect of my fight, I was visualizing how I was going to present myself. What am I going to wear? How am I going to act? What am I going to say? And rehearsing those things. I would be in my, literally before I go to bed, visualizing myself walking out of the cage, looking at all the people around me, taking in my surroundings, getting into the cage. How am I going to be on camera? All of those tiny details, if you visualize from start to finish and you do that every single day, you will get used to it to the point where you've already practiced this. You're here. It's time now. But you're not caught off guard. You know what to expect. You know what you're going to do rather than getting in the moment. You're like, oh, what do I do? What do I say? You know, all of that stuff. And again, it sounds so cheesy, but like your mindset is everything in every aspect of what you're doing. So I would say that's how I prepared the most for that.
I think that's most like when I talk to like other people outside of like interviewing, a lot of what you hear, especially what you were saying about the mindset, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it does take a different. It's almost like flipping a switch, almost saying like, okay, because when you have that killer instinct, it's not even just adrenaline. It's like it takes a whole different thing of being like, okay, we're gonna do this for real now. But the one thing I want to know is you talk about visualization and all this stuff. And the one thing I want to know is a lot of people do get nervous to be on camera
Mm-hmm.
and things. How did you first interpret that when you were like, and you first see the cameras? You're like, okay, this is like kind of cool. But when you're fighting, obviously you're not really trying to think about the cameras. You're just so dialed in because you're spending 7 to 8 weeks on
Yeah.
this fight. So the one thing I want to know is as you as a fighter and not just having people be like, oh yeah, she's just whatever. From your own perspective, what do you think is something for like especially like me and like younger fighters and stuff that people should know about like cameras and stuff and not to like worry about? Like what advice do you have for that?
I would say start practicing on your own, like at home. Like if you're watching the fights, like you're watching the UFC fights, and you see their post-fight interviews, listen to the questions that they're asking, and then maybe pause the TV or write the question down or record what they ask you. And then in the mirror, I want you looking at yourself as if you're looking at the camera. And I want you to start like thinking about how you would respond if you were in that fight. What would you talk about? And start teaching yourself how to do those because it is a skill. Like some people do naturally have it and they're naturally charismatic, but like myself, I had to teach myself to be charismatic and to talk to a camera. I actually went to a cold read class for acting on how to like do a audition for an acting interview, but it's essentially the same thing. Like, how do you carry yourself? How are you going to present yourself? Like, am I relaxed enough? Am I looking at the camera? Am I engaging with my audience? Like all of those tiny little details, start like visualizing those things, like asking yourself those questions. How would I respond? How am I going to answer in this moment? How do I want to sound? And then just practice it over and over again. I mean, you're going to sound a little crazy in your room going like, I think I had da 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 da, or I think that blah blah blah, like just talking. But the more you do it and the more you do it out loud, the more practice you get, and you'll get more comfortable with having a camera in your face. And then another thing too is just remember to be yourself in those moments and not go, I'm trying to put on a persona, because people can see that whenever you're faking it. So just be yourself. You don't need to be tough. You can just be yourself and be a fighter. Like for me, I love anime. I love cutesy girl shit. Like, excuse my language, but I love cutesy stuff. And I love, like, I love art. I love drawing. I like putting on dresses. Like that's me to my core. But I'm also a fighter outside of that. I can be tough and I can be a killer and I can do all of these things. So don't allow the MMA space to take away your personality and who you are at your core. If you're kind and you're loving and you're like a sweetheart, be that, because that is what people resonate with and what they will feel more connected to, rather than whenever you try to put on this persona of I'm a celebrity, I'm cool, I'm whatever. They're gonna be like, they don't feel connected to that. It's not real, it's not human. But you being yourself, they love that. So that's my advice to working with cameras and doing all that stuff. As far as in the cage and having a camera on you, I mean, you honestly don't even realize that it's there until you watch back and you're like, oh, they got that on camera, cool.
That message I feel like is very important because I think the one thing that a lot of people don't realize, and I had made a post like a couple weeks later, like earlier, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people on the outside of MMA that watch, like people like me compete or people that actually fight like you, are like, oh my god, these people are so violent. But it's like that couldn't be farther from the truth. And the one thing that I like to live by and say is, yes, we do a violent sport, but that does not mean we are violent people. A lot of people like you have stories to the point where like you went from soccer to wrestling and you discovered MMA and all this other things that you're doing amazing at. And I think a lot of people don't see what it actually takes to get into the sport and actually do it professionally. And the one thing that like I said, like the important message is like we're not violent people. We just happen to do a violent sport, and we love it. Like me and you, we're girls. We like to do the cutesy girl stuff. Like we like to have fun and do, because it does take a lot of emotional draining on our mental and then physically too, because it's a lot on your body. And speaking of which, you talked about point fighting, and the one thing that I discovered is you competing in jiu-jitsu too. I kind of want to know, how did you get into that aspect of fighting?
So with jujitsu, I mean, for MMA overall, like you have to have a hand in every single discipline. You have to be good on the ground, you have to be good on the feet, or if maybe you're not the best technical wrestler, you have to know how to do it properly so you can defend it. Like for me, I love striking and that is my strong suit. I don't typically like to, like I'm not intentionally like, okay, I'm gonna go grapple this person, because I know that I can do a lot more damage on the feet than I can do on the ground. But you need to have every single aspect of fighting. So with jujitsu, I was like, okay, I need to get competent in jujitsu. I need to understand how this works. And I do love jujitsu and I love competing in it because it's another aspect of competition. And with Fortis, we have like multiple disciplines in the school. So we have Muay Thai, we have kickboxing, we have boxing, we have jujitsu program. So we're able to go like through a full program of things all throughout the same week in the same place, which is a blessing. But with jujitsu specifically, and how I started competing was I wanted to use jujitsu as a practice run for competing, being under the lights, being in front of someone, having, stakes, quote unquote. Um, in my first couple competitions, like I did okay. There was one of them I like completely lost, like completely embarrassed myself. I only had one person in my bracket rear naked choked me twice, and I got like basically a participation second place medal that sits on the wall of shame. But I also look at it as a learning experience of I put myself out there, and now because I failed, I know what I need to work on and how to move forward. But getting into that, I was like, okay, this is scary. This is new. I'm just going to put myself out there. And every time that I competed, it's just made me more and more confident in, okay, I know what I'm doing. We're going to go test it. Maybe this person's better. What can I learn from that experience? Or, okay, great. I won this one. How did I win? And going back and looking at all those details. But competing, especially for someone young and just getting started, is going to be the best way to figure out where your holes are. Where am I going to need to get better So to anyone that is just starting out, compete as much as possible, even if it's in something that you're maybe not the best at just yet. You'll get experience from it and it's going to be a good one, whether you win or lose. Just don't let your ego be like, oh, well, I have to win. You don't. It literally doesn't mean anything down the line.
And oh, that was like a little bit of everything there. I like that. The one thing about you that like I've noticed is, you're very confident. And I think the very having that confidence is very important. And the one thing that I will have to say, and a lot of things that I learned from coaching little kids is like that confidence can help you with so much and not just like fighting. And the one thing too is you're big in social media too. You do a lot. Not just fighting, like I said, you don't just fight, you compete, you manage, you do social media. The one thing about social media that I want to know is what are some of the things that you think people don't see that you're like, maybe like I wish people understood like this is actually what I do for social media,
Yeah.
and I wish people actually like not like just like gave you the respect, but like honestly understood like how much work goes into it.
I mean, social media is a full-time job, but it's part of your job as a fighter to put yourself out there and to engage with your audience. Because at the end of the day, we are entertainers. And a lot of people, I think, forget that aspect. And I think Ronda Rousey had just had a recent interview that talked about this topic specifically. But our job is not only to be an athlete, but we have to be entertaining. And so if we don't build our fan base, if we don't interact with our fan base, if we don't, find our niche and get ourselves out there and people knowing who we are and like branding ourselves. So that way, when they see my edits or they see my color palettes or like whatever I'm wearing, it is high tech. It is Sydney Levick. Like they can look at me and go, that's her. At the end of the day, you become your own marketing team, you become your own branding team, you become your own social media manager. And you know as much as it sucks having to be on the internet all the time, it's what's necessary to stay on trend because it's exhausting. It's a full-time job. Like, I mean, I've again been blessed to be able to do like a side hustle here and there. Like I'm managing my teammate Sam's Instagram page because again, she's a full-time athlete and she has so much training that gets her ready for her fights. She doesn't have time to sit there and edit videos or go and find YouTube clips of herself and edit there and learn how to edit, how to make sure that she's color grading, all of these things. Like there's so many details that go into making a good piece of content that it's exhausting. And again, like as an athlete, you're like, I have to train, I have to do nutrition, I have to, keep up with paying my bills and doing a normal everyday life stuff. And then on top of that, now I got to interact with thousands of people and making sure that I'm feeding them enough content that they're interested in what I'm doing. I mean, at the end of the day, like you're working several jobs just to keep that running. Um, and I don't feel like people truly wrap their heads around that. I mean, like if I'm gonna do, say, let's do like a day in the life video. Now, not only do I have to get myself ready for the day, go and do all my classes, but now I have to remember to record every little aspect of my day, talk about it on camera at the end of the day, edit it when I'm dead tired from training and I just want to go to sleep, and then post it and then maybe get 200, 300 views, 5 likes. And it's like, you just got to keep pushing it out there until it catches one day. But no, I mean, it's necessary in this day and age. Unfortunately, the game is changing and we can't just be athletes anymore. You have to do all of those things to make it, but it's what separates the good from the great.
You talk about managing Sam's page, and you've gotten to travel a lot with her. And the one thing that, not to like make it more confusing and stuff for other people, but there's a lot that goes into like behind the scenes of like when you go to the fights and stuff and when you're in someone's corner.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I want to know is the first time that you did that with Sam, how was that experience for you? Because maybe a lot of people don't really, there might be a lot of cameras that like film a lot of footage, but I don't think a lot of people understand like what goes into before, especially like a big event like the UFC.
Yeah.
For you, what was that first time like when you're like behind the scenes and you're like, oh, this is like this big?
Well, the one that I went to was my first time overall. Like I'd gone. They were with me through my camp whenever I had my amateur debut in August, and I got to see. They walked basically help like hand held me through my camp to show me what a professional camp looks like, how to be a professional. And so from my own experience of like going through my own weight cut, which was freaking grueling, I now understood what her mindset was like. Maybe not completely because it's a very different stakes level, but I got to understand in my own way firsthand. So now when I went with her to her event, I had that experience of, okay, this is how I need to help and take care of her. But that experience was, I mean, I felt like the luckiest girl in the world. I was like, this has literally been my dream since I was like, small, like watching all this stuff. And I mean, it was A, very humbling, and B, I was very, very grateful to go and be able to experience that. And I was also very, very excited that I was there to help support her. But I mean, behind the scenes, it was like, they had their, specific days where they, would do media. They would go in and sign posters. And then there were some days, every day that they would get like their meals and stuff from the UFC to take care of them. But as far as like leading up to the fight, we did like a lot of pad work. We did a lot of, just kind of going through the game plan and just going through that. Myself and my teammate Mila, we went with her and we had, our head coach, Charles Bird, he had done a lot of research on Sam's opponent and then told us how we needed to fight to help prepare her. So essentially he was like, all right, guys, we need you to become Irish for the week. And so we would train and fight like Shauna, so that way she had a decent look about who her opponent and how she was going to fight and then how she's going to counter and beat that opponent. And then, being in Paris, France was freaking amazing. We had some days where we would go sightsee for a little bit and just walk around, making sure that Sam was good. Because, she's doing weight cut. And then just kind of keeping the vibes up. Like, we want positivity. You want good energy in your camp. You don't want people like around you that are going to kind of bring you down and bring in negative energy. You want a clear, calm mindset. You want uplifting energy the entire time. And then I think the coolest part was definitely the walkout. I was recording, so I wasn't able to like completely look around because I was making sure that I had good content for her. But being under the lights and being in that environment and like watching her do her thing like firsthand, like by far the coolest experience I've ever had. And the Paris crowd was so loud and so energetic. And, I think that experience as someone who's, wanting to get there too was priceless. I would never be able to put money on that ever. And I'm just so glad that, I was, you know, Sam was wanting me to be there for her. And I'm glad that I got to be there for her in those moments. But yeah, behind the scenes, UFC, by far the coolest experience ever.
I love hearing that for you because, as someone that like wants to do that, that's insane. That's crazy cool. And the one thing that like I like to talk about, and I think, you talk about like being yourself. And the one thing that like I harp on with the podcast is the same mentality I've had for like competing and when I did other sports is, I feel like you shouldn't fake anything. And a lot of people that are on the outside that don't train, that are like friends with you and stuff, are like, oh, can I go? Like, can I get a ticket? It's like, but you weren't there 3 years ago when I was like struggling and in that process. And it's nice to like know like you get to be a part of that. Like you're not being used. You're not being, oh, she's just there because, you know. But you get to live this experience. You're living your dream, and I'm very happy and proud of you for that because you
Thank
deserve
you.
that. And the one thing I want to know is, do you have anything coming up that we should know about?
Fingers crossed. We don't have it officially official, but we're talking about hopefully January 24th with Peak. We still don't have an opponent yet or anything official, but that's what we have right now. Looking towards the future, I want to fight no later than February, because we have some pretty good momentum right now, and I want to keep that up. But fingers crossed, January 24th.
Well, I do appreciate you being on the podcast with me.
Of
It means
course.
a lot. And, I'll be a fan forever. So I'll be rooting for you when you go on to fight and even now into the amateurs and up to the UFC. And hopefully we can see you do amazing things in a title one day. I believe that it will happen. But is there any advice that you will give, like for social media, for fighting, for managing
Mhm.
to young people?
Absolutely. I would say my one piece of advice, I mean, there's probably going to be more than one, but um, just keep trying things. Don't let any like don't get discouraged by failures. If anything, get excited about failures because they will always teach you what not to do and how to be better. I think that a lot of people are intimidated with trying and failing. Everyone wants to be good and have instant gratification. I truly believe that's because of the internet and our phones and constantly getting a dopamine hit and constantly getting like instant gratification from things. But long term, just keep doing the little things that are working and they eventually lead into the good things. And don't be afraid to fail because failure is what essentially teaches you how to win. So that's my advice.
Well, I love that, and I appreciate everything you've done for helping me out and just
Of
talking to
course.
me because it does mean a lot. And I know I'm small right now, so I
I
deeply appreciate it. And I want to thank you for coming on. But this is officially the end of the interview. I appreciate the time that you
you're
gave
most
me.
welcome.
But that was this week's episode, guys. Guys can go follow Sydney. I'll give all her socials in the link down below because you guys gotta go check her out and see when she's fighting and see what she's doing in her life. Because she's always doing something new or on the run, on the travel, on the plane, in the car, doing something. So you guys stay tuned with her. Bye, guys. I will see you guys next week.